the call by economists to the government after described as negative propaganda recent ratings by financial agency Moody's.
On to react to this grading, but rather accept it as a transition.
Well, I'm also quite surprised at the reaction of government.
Now, what will you do with your mobile phone on Tuesday, February 8th, the No Calls Day? We'll speak to some Ghanaians who are calling for this boycott. Will you join? Also in this package, after a month of no academic activity on university campuses following a UTAG strike, students who are the worst affected by the industrial action are set to hit the streets to protest and demand government's immediate action.
When two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. We want to tell both UTAG and government that students are suffering.
We have details of broken down negotiations between government and the lecturers after UTAG refused to participate in a meeting called by the NLC following a court order. This is Joy News Prime. We're live on DSTV, channel 421, GoTV 144. This is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. I'm Ernest Minu. Stay for details. Now, step up your efforts rather than complaining. That's a call by some economists to government after described as negative propaganda the recent ratings by financial agency Moody's. The agency downgraded Ghana's bond ratings from a B ratings to C and justified the downgrade by pointing out liquidity and debt challenges as well as the pandemic-induced revenue underperformance. But government has rejected these findings or these ratings. We'll hear from the Deputy Finance Minister shortly. But first, let's break down the grading system and what it means. My colleague Kofi J of our research desk joins us. Kofi, let's start with a grading system. How is the grading done?
Right, so in terms of the grading, if you take a look at Fitch grading starts from a AAA to a D. Okay. And it is similar to what we find in S&P. S&P is also from a AAA to a D. But when it comes to Moody's, it's from a AAA to a C. Okay. Okay, so an A means that people are safe, the highest level of safety. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes from the B to the B minus to the C's, it's when you're at the highest risks of going to the financial markets to borrow. Mm. Yeah.
So what do these ratings mean for the country's economy when it comes to long-term bonds, for instance?
It simply means that if you've been downgraded to, let's say, a B minus with a negative outlook, it means that now you are going to pay high in terms of interest when it comes to you going to the international market to look for funds. Now let's start with long-term issuer credits for Moody's. Mm. So let me start with Moody's. So Moody's, the current rating was in February 4th, 2022. Okay. Now Moody's has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ratings on Ghana's economy. Mm. Now the current ratings is a CAA1 with a stable outlook. Okay. Now if you compare this to the Fitch ratings, it's exactly, a triple C that government fears the most, So a CAA1 is equivalent to a triple C on a Fitch scale. Okay. Now, if you take a look at
the Standards and Poor's.
Yes, Standards and Poor's. Mm. So they have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 ratings as far as the Ghanaian economy is concerned, and it started with a B1 in...
No, we're looking at Moody's now.
Yeah, sorry.
So we have to move the slide so we can look at... So we can look at Standards and Poor's, and then we can look at Fitch as well, which is the other ratings. Okay, so this Standards and Poor's. No, we went back to Moody's.
Today our screen is...
So we have Standards and Poor's on the screen.
So let's do the Moody's. Let's do the Moody's since we are facing difficulties. Okay, so Moody's has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ratings, and it started S&P. So the first ratings was in March, 16, 2019. That was a B plus with a negative outlook, and this was maintained a B, another B, and a B plus in September 2013. Now, current rating, it started from September 11, 2020, a B minus with a stable outlook, and this has been maintained in February 4th, 2022, a B minus also with a stable outlook in 2022. Now, if you look at Moody's, so for Moody's, they have had about 8 ratings for Ghana, and so they started with a B1 in 2012, another B1 in 2013, a B2 in 2014, a B3 in 2015. It was maintained 3. We had 4 consecutive B3s from 2015 to 2020. In 2020, there were 2 ratings. The first one was in 24th June 2020, and the second was in April 17, 2020. And the current ratings is, it just came at the time of S&P, the same time that S&P released their ratings, February 4th, 2022. Okay. And this is a C with a double A1 with a stable outlook. It means that our credit ratings on Moody's scale has moved from a B3 with a negative outlook to a C double A1 with a stable outlook. So that's a downgrade.
Now, there's one thing that is consistent with the rating. So we've seen that of Moody's, we've seen Standard & Poor's, which is the latest. We'll come to that shortly. And then we've also seen Fitch as well. We see generally a downgrade, except that there's a difference when it comes to Moody's the outlook for Ghana.
Exactly.
And so what does this mean? Let's look at first Standard & Poor's, the latest ratings. What does this mean for our economy? What are they saying about our credit ratings?
So Standard & Poor's, they have about 2 concerns. They're just like Moody's, they are concerned about the level of our debts.
Okay.
And then our ability to raise revenue to finance the debt that we owe. So the key word here is that, although you've been downgraded, it comes as a result of your ability to pay, your ability to settle your debt. And that's the most important thing here. So the concerns raised by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's is that, our debt levels are high currently. And then when it comes to raising, revenue to finance debt, it hasn't really gone, in a good way for the country. Now, if you look at interest payments this year, it's taking a chunk of our revenue. And that's a worry that both Moody's and S&P are, pointing out that this could be as one of the reasons why we've had a downgrade.
Kofi, thank you very much for helping us understand these ratings and what they actually mean for our economy. Over the weekend, President Akufo-Addo urged African countries to guard against the impact of such negative ratings on their economy. Today, a deputy finance minister says the ratings is negative propaganda. He spoke on the AM show.
I particularly has rejected these ratings from Moody's. We have issued a statement. Just on 22nd January 2022, they appointed the lead Ghana analyst, Juan Veralusi, who has never even traveled to Ghana before. You sit before your desktop and look at documents and downgrade a country without even fiscally engaging the people.
Are you suggesting Moody's manufactured these figures, that they did not do the right due diligence?
The basis, we don't agree with the basis of those analyses. And we have made it plainly to them that, first of all, you cannot seek to downgrade a country in the midst of this pandemic when all your basis of this downgrade is that Ghana has overspent in COVID. I want to ask which country in the world has not overspent because of COVID? Why are they not downgrading the European and American economy? It's just hypocritical, and I don't think we should give attention to this kind of negative propaganda against Africa.
We can now hear from some economists who have expressed surprise at the reaction of government. They want government to do better in managing the economy instead of attacking these agencies.
These agencies don't change their models, right? The models they're using to grade great companies, great sovereign entities like Ghana, across Africa, everywhere, remains the same. They don't change their gradings because it's COVID. The only difference is that the parameters that are feeding into the model they use have changed. So if you spend more, in COVID, and it gives you a future that indicates that you will struggle to pay your debt. It gives you a future that indicates that, COVID may have affected your production, so therefore you are not likely to pay your debt. Obviously you'll be downgraded. What we have to do is that we have to relate the downgrading of Ghana to other African countries and look at on the continent whether we've all been downgraded to a certain margin or not. Then we'll be able to appreciate what is happening on the ground. But I can tell you that the investor will not, understand an information that will come from, the government that is managing the economy. But rather, they will rely on the information that these rating agencies gives them, because they've been relying on them to take their decision all this while. Why is it that the previous times when they were grading us, we never came out? And we should also understand that for these rating agencies, we got something solicited rating and then unsolicited, rating. What African countries do is what? Solicited. We hide them more or less because we want to get our information out there to the public, to the investment public, so that when we go to the market, the investor already has certain levels of information with us.
Right.
We've been grading all this while. So why at this time this reaction? For me, I will advise that the government does not go on to react to this grading, but rather accept it as a transition.
I'm also quite surprised at the reaction of government to the ratings. Reading the report, I thought that the Moody's ratings was actually quite magnanimous to the government, because they said that they've kept our outlook as stable because of the government pre-pandemic track record of effective policies and effective policy management. So I'm quite surprised that the Deputy Finance Minister is at the reaction generally. But the substance of what is there, I don't think there's much to dispute in terms of how the fact that when we collect revenue, almost half is going to service interest, and the fact that in the 2022 budget we are going to rely more on domestic financing, the fact that it has the potential to crowd out the private sector, the fact that interest costs are going to go up because we are expecting that the interest rates are going to go up because the monetary policy rate will be expected to go up. It's already gone up in the last 3 months or so. And then around the world, we are all projecting that because inflation pressures are going up around the world, interest costs, many central banks will raise their rates. So for me, I wasn't quite surprised at the downgrade. I expected that because the information that is being used to evaluate the economy is very similar. So I think maybe what we should do is to step up our effort to convince and show that we have a plan to bring the public finances back to where it should be, rather than trying to criticize the rating.
Let's do some other stories. Now, Tuesday, February 8th, is No Calls Day, according to a group of notable Ghanaians who are doing this in opposition to the ongoing SIM re-registration across the country. Now, the process has been fraught with system challenges and network failure, leaving many subscribers frustrated and worried. The queues, however, keep forming because Ghanaians are racing against time to meet the March-ending deadline for the exercise, beyond which you cannot make calls or text or even carry out some financial transactions because your line will be blocked. Concerned mobile network subscribers have made some demands. Let's look at those demands. They are, first of all, calling the National Communications Authority should immediately withdraw its directive for mobile network customers to re-register their SIM cards by 31st of March 2022. They also, when the appropriate legal frame is in place, a re-registration exercise can be done without having subscribers spend productive hours and several days in long queues in the midst of a ravaging COVID-19 pandemic. Point 3 says there's understandably a need to eliminate crime, but the fight against criminals must be within the law. And the very final point says, we therefore demand that the NCA and mobile network operators must come up with a better and more innovative way of re-registering the SIM cards by first amending existing law, and secondly, to do so without the current inhumane re-registration process we are going through. So the group includes a former Kumbungu Member of Parliament, Ras Mubarak. There's also the Dean of the UG School of Law, Professor Raymond Atuguba, President and Vice President of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo, and Kofi Bentil, private legal practitioner Samson Ladi Anyanini, investigative journalist Manasseh Zurewini, and Salom Brantier. And both of them, Salom and Manasseh, joined me via Zoom for some discussion on this. Let me start with you, Salom. You indicated that if the NCA and the MNOs fail to heed your demands, you will be, this will be the beginning of a planned boycott, a series of planned boycotts. Safe to say that since you raised these issues, the NCA has not moved to address your concerns?
Yes, to a very large extent, the NCA has not really moved much in terms of trying to sort of reconcile their position with the position of the general populace with regard to process and how everything is being conducted. Draconian with respect to the fact that it's even difficult to even to get the main prerequisites for the registration of the cards, which is the Ghana card. There are delays, there are queues to even get the Ghana card, even before you be able to go to collection to go factor your pay. It's in on a lot of people, and the assumption that the situation in areas persist in peri-urban and rural because we are in a situation that's not always up. And we don't even know, for most of us who are even more technical, we don't even know how the data that is captured is processed to ensure that this registration isn't subject to certain leakages or abuse of our personal data.
Now, let me come to you, Manasseh. So what form will this take tomorrow? How do you expect Ghanaians to join you in this boycott?
Well, we expect Ghanaians to, from 6 a.m. to midday, put off their phones. So if you call all my lines tomorrow morning up to midday, you are not going to get me. We know this comes at a cost to people. As a journalist, I use my phone a lot, but we are also in a society that we must begin to set up and fight for our rights. And there is no way in this world that you fight without losing anything. There's a cost to everything. But the general impact we intend to make, the gains we intend to make from all these actions will go a long way to benefit all of us. It is better to lose or to decide to keep off or not even receive any call for 6 hours, than to lose your right to make phone calls at all. The problem in this country, as we all know, is that by the 31st of March, if nothing is done about this directive and what is happening, a lot of people are going to lose their right to make phone calls and to even use mobile money and other transactions or services that are provided by these telcos. And as Salom said, there are people who are still queuing and struggling to be able to get their Ghana card. And if you don't have your Ghana card, how are you able to register in order not to lose your network? So we are asking as many Ghanaians as possible to join this crusade and campaign. This is the first of such activities. And we hope that those in charge of the affairs of this country and the telecom service providers, network providers, will listen and do something about this. We are mature enough to be able to have a humane and civilized form of pre-registration without people going through what they are currently being subjected to.
Salam, this is 6 good hours, quite a lot to ask of some Ghanaians if you ask them. Do you get a sense that Ghanaians are in with you on this?
For most actions like this, it usually always starts with what people think is ludicrous or people think is
well, we seem to have a poor connection.
In activism. The first, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying that in activism, the first step is always the most important. Usually, it seems very ludicrous when you start, but once it gains momentum and people also subscribe to the same sentiments, then it creates a groundswell that actually creates a change in policy or a change in approach by those who are in charge. So yes, 6 hours sounds drastic. 6 hours sounds laughable for some people. And of course, even the fact that people begin to think about it or rethink the situation means that there is traction going on, and we expect that as time goes on, more people would also join in. And the reason is that it is to simulate the kind of losses that telecoms are going to expect, or the economy is going to expect, when they actually proceed to the full shutdown of numbers that have not been registered. If today they are laughing at subscribers who want to participate in this boycott, then they should imagine the loss to the nation if more people are actually robbed of the chance to use their SIM cards, which is their bona fide property, for activities that are legitimate and are, as a matter of fact, they are right to do. And this is the beginning of such, like Manasseh said earlier, and like we all put it, that we want to look at the situation where in the very near future, if there is still no consultation, we will cascade this till it really becomes a dent or a mark in terms of the national telecom landscape. So this is the first one, and we are appealing to all of those who sort of agree with where we are coming from, our approach, to take this step with us as the first step, or to create a groundswell for others to join in and then support this cause, which is to benefit all of us subscribers, because there are people, for some reason or the other, who would not be able to go through these processes or these steps. And it is through no fault of theirs, and they should not be punished for something that is basically their right as of now.
For me, we decided to conduct a poll on this just to gauge the views of Ghanaians on this boycott scheduled for Tuesday, tomorrow. So we asked Ghanaians whether or not they are willing to participate in this boycott. We put up a poll on Twitter. We'll put up the results. So the question is, a group called the Concerned Mobile Network Subscribers have declared tomorrow a no-calls day to protest the ongoing SIM re-registration exercise by the NCA. Are you willing to join this boycott? So the options, yes, no, and indifferent. And this was just a few hours to the bulletin. We'll bring you the results after the bulletin, but we'll bring you the results after the interview. But just a quick one, Manasseh, tomorrow from 6 to 12, are you expecting, does this also include the use of data? I mean, you've talked about phone calls. Are you also talking about, does it include the use of data?
Well, my phones are all going to be off. So whatever that uses SIM card is going to be off. They are registering the SIM cards. That's the bone of contention here. So I won't be on WhatsApp. I'm not going to accept voice calls. Whatever that has to do with my mobile phone and SIM card will be off throughout this period.
Very well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Joy News Prime. And the poll is still ongoing, and so you can just go onto our Twitter handle. So the results so far, with just a few votes in, 63.2% saying yes, they're willing to join this, and 22.4% saying no. We have some 14% who are quite indifferent about this. So go onto our social media handles, and you can participate in this poll. The Majority Leader, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, says he criticizes the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Badin, to ensure that the Speaker exhibits neutrality when presiding over proceedings. The Swami MP cited instances where the Speaker has been biased in his handling of issues in the chamber, but the Minority Chief Whip disagrees with him. In the part 2 of Joy News' Hotline documentary titled Ghana's Hung Parliament, A Blessing or a Curse, we put a spotlight on the conduct of the Speaker in the 8th Parliament. Here's an excerpt of that documentary, which will be aired at 8:30 p.m.
The Asawasi MP, who is the longest serving MP in the current leadership of the minority, claims a meeting was scheduled to interrogate the attacks on the Speaker. In the said meeting, the Majority Leader was admonished to shun away from attacking the Speaker publicly. Although Chairman Sabonsu had agreed to the proposition, he breached the agreement shortly after the meeting.
And this one, I mean, I'm sure also we should go now. And I said, Majority Leader, you are not helping. Because it looks like you are still leading only your side. It's only the minority that leads only his side. The majority that doesn't lead his side alone. He leads both sides. You are not doing that. And because I'm noticing that there's some ego running between you and the Speaker. And in my view, both of you needs to pause. So we talked, and the bottom line that I insisted that we, the leaders, the 12 of us, should go and meet the Speaker. We agree. I need some kind of gentleman. Majority Leader, speaking against the Speaker in public is not helpful because he doesn't have the same opportunity. Speaker cannot call for a press conference. It's not done. So even when you disagree with him, we beg you, use another person. Let another person within your caucus do it. As for you, when we meet in the room, then you point it. I swear to God that criteria. That very evening, Majority Leader was speaking to the press against the Speaker.
He says he criticizes you.
That's very evident. But Speaker cannot respond to you in the public. So now you see the certain to the extent that for the first time in my life in Parliament, almost 2 decades, minutes of parliamentary service meetings and other things are leaked in the press as a way of Speaker trying to defend himself. That's terrible. But who calls out? Terrible because these are confidential things that even minutes have to be leaked in a way to defend the Speaker.
It is about the Speaker and not a Speaker. The Speaker, so you come to 102, which provides.
But the Majority Leader argues that the Speaker has, in some instances, displayed blatant bias. He, however, added that, as one of the senior members of the House, accustomed to the rules and procedures, including having a better appreciation of the standing orders, he indulged in the criticisms of the Speaker to ensure Mr. Babin toes the line of balance.
I disagree with him on some of the things that he has done recently or has been doing, but it doesn't mean that we are enemies. There are things that I would consider that is not being fair, right? But to say that it's been partisan, I don't want to go into that. And occasionally, I will tell him my disagreement. Even when we go into pre-sitting meetings, he will make a point, and I will tell him, Mr. Speaker, I disagree with you on this. But maybe what you are saying, as far as this matter is concerned, I don't think is the truth. That's how we relate to each other. As far as I'm concerned, I criticize to reform. If you take it fair and fine. The Speaker may also disagree with me on maybe something that I would say or perhaps I may not do, that he would think that I ought to have done something that I didn't do. He may disagree with me and point it out to me. Is he an enemy? No.
Professor Jampo maintains that the current crop of leadership lacks what it takes to lead a hung parliament and asks the party to reshuffle the majority leadership.
Well, we're going to have this from now up to 2024. And either the current leadership change, but of course, a leopard has its skin. Even if it falls into water, it can change. Okay, so let them appreciate. They are honorable members of parliament, and you have a situation at hand. How to deal with that situation in a manner that will ensure that government business will not unnecessarily be frustrated is what we're talking about.
So you think that the political parties then we should begin to consider a overhaul?
If they are now, if they've not thought about this, then I'm telling them.
How soon should it be?
If they've not thought about it and they want to maintain the same kind of leaders leading them in these processes, it will be up to them. But I think that you need a certain caliber of leadership whose language would be so conciliatory to the point that you may not have to bring people outside parliament to intervene.
But in a sharp response, the majority leader, Osei Sabonsu, asked Professor Jampo not to stick his nose to where it doesn't belong.
Is he with us?
He's a
died in the wool NDC. Everybody knows that. Is he the person qualified to tell us which players we felt in our team? Is he the person to tell us? Now, let's be realistic about this. He's not a person to tell us the players that we should felt in our team. He should keep his advice to himself, with respect to him. Because everybody hears him, his pronouncements. Have you heard Jampo ever condemn NDC? He's a political scientist. But let's get it clear.
Let's go to the phone lines now. Professor Ransford Jampo joins us. Prof, thank you for joining us here on Join His Prime. You had the majority leader there say that you're sticking your nose where it does not belong, and essentially saying that it is not in your place to advise them because you are explicitly NDC.
Well, thank you very much. I have heard this, and initially I was angered by the comment from Osei Sabonsu. But upon a sober reflection, I think I'll have to tone down and give him a very simple response. I think Sabonsu is suffering from a deliberate political dementia. And so deliberately he has forgotten the role we played. And John Mahama and the NDC was in power. I'm only seeking to tell him that he occupied a certain position when his party had majority number of parliament seats. And that kind of leadership, the position he occupied, is no longer relevant in a hung parliament. In a hung parliament, you need people who are conciliatory and they have what it takes to be able to bring about consensus. That's all I thought to say. And if you listen to your own if you watch and listen to your own documentary, in that documentary, I also took issues criticizing the NDC that they don't have to overly do things in a manner that would also create a certain intransigence and stall governance. Because somebody has won political power and must govern at all costs. It's in your documentary, so play it.
Absolutely.
And so for Mensa to hear this and to say that I am a die-in-the-wool NDC man, I think simply portrays him as somebody who is suffering from political dementia. Because everybody who is politically astute and politically switched on in Ghana knows that I've spoken my mind. I am a political scientist. I do not subject parties in opposition to strict proof. We are trained to subject parties in government to strict scrutiny and proof. And so when John Mahama was in power, we subjected him to criticism and to rigorous analysis, and we dissected everything that he did. And around that time, Prime Minister and his court liked what we did against John Mahama. Suddenly, John Mahama is not in power. It's another regime that is in power. We are subjecting that same regime to thorough discussions and strict proof, and all of a sudden, he is telling me that I am a die-in-the-wood NDC. Well, I leave his description to the good judgment of the people of Ghana. I mean, you guys.
But Prof, you can help us on this. You can help us on this to answer his question or to respond to his claim in a very unambiguous term. Are you NDC or not?
Please, this is a question that I find unintelligent to come from you. It's an unintelligent question.
How so?
Because you have known me, I've been in this game from November 14, 2004, when I joined the Institute of Economic Affairs as a governance fellow researcher and also as the coordinator of the Ghana Political Parties Program. And I've worked with all the political parties since then, up to 2016 when that program collapsed. And so if you ask me that question, then you are not being intelligent.
Professor Rampo, your record is not in doubt. Your record is not in doubt. There's a claim from the majority leader. The majority leader is saying that you are NDC without a doubt. And I was hoping that you respond to the question directly to say, I am not NDC. What you have told us in the documentary has been played. The full documentary part 2 will be played at 8:30 p.m. But if you could just respond in a very unambiguous term, I guess that would just settle the issue because it's come up a number of times.
Listen, I cannot be NDC and I can't be MPP too.
Very well. Very well. Thank you very much.
I've stayed a focus. I've told a certain line, just playing my role as a political scientist and ensuring that whoever gets elected is subjected to some kind of strict rules with the dogmas of the issues that I've interrogated, the issues that I've researched on, as a political scientist. And so if doing so, it doesn't go well with anybody and the person would want to deliberately tag me, I leave that to the conscience and the good judgment of the people of Ghana. But I tell you that if Prime Minister of all people tells me this, then he's suffering from a deliberate political dementia.
Thank you very much. That's Professor Anso Jampo, a political scientist. He's been speaking to us on our latest Hotline documentary. The full part 2, will air at 8:30 p.m. You definitely want to make a time for that after this bulletin. And still to come here on Joy News Prime, we have the latest for you in business. Stay tuned.
It's time for business. I'm Charles Aite. Ghana's international bonds are no more lucrative as the country faces challenges with liquidity and refinancing of its debt. The view of senior finance analysts who spoke to Joy Business on the back of the downgrade of the country's credit ratings by Moody's. Now, the downgrade to CAA1 from B3, which means the country's international bonds are very risky, is worse than the B negative rating by another ratings agent, Fitch. The financial analysts want immediate action by government to address the situation. Let's first hear from Joe Jackson, Executive Director of Dalex Finance.
If you're B minus with negative, it means you are B minus and we are likely to downgrade you. So in terms of the real impact, I think that has happened already. The issue really is this: we should stop shooting the messenger and listen to the message. And the message is loud and clear. The international committee, the international public, those who buy, investor community, and the independent communities are not happy with how we are, the state of our public purse at the moment. They see a lot of borrowing. They see essentially we don't have enough revenue and we are spending too much. Let's fix it. Let's fix it. Lambasting the messenger doesn't solve the problem. Fixing your problems is what is important. And unfortunately, African countries don't have a good history of fixing their problems. And that's why there's even all this discussion about going to the IMF and the conditionalities involved. If we assure that our economy is strong, let's fix it. This is not the time for partisan blame game, the blame game, who is mismanaging the economy. The truth of the matter is that our economy is in bad shape. We are broke. And the rating agencies have recognized that. Let's fix it.
Dr. William Zipra is the Chief Finance Officer of the Valley View University and says the country's situation is dire, but wants more efforts by government to bring hope to the economy.
The three agencies on Ghana government assessment, none of them talked about reduction in expenditure. All of them focus on revenue generation because they know that as a country and our pattern, we may say we will reduce our expenditure, but I mean, where we have come from, we know that this is not very realistic. So if the analysts are predicting, they will be focusing on which angle is permissible and can be done. So that angle is on the revenue generation. And the path is very clear. Government is making a lot of effort and noise also on the e-levy. We've heard of the changes that they are expected to bring, maybe very soon. So these are the signs. So if government makes the argument, it doesn't mean that Moody's must just pick what government is saying and go by it. So it's in the hands of government to show by works and not by rhetoric or by just saying that we are going to reduce our expenditure by 20%. Government must make sure that they listen to what these agencies are saying, and it gives government to focus on what strategies can we put in place to be able to address the challenges that they have mentioned. And it's when you read the report, it's very clear. They talked about inflexibility in our revenue patterns. So government must make sure that we increase our revenues.
Ministry has formally appealed to, the downgrade of the country's credit ratings by Moody's. Well, the ministry is questioning the approach used by the ratings agency as well as citing inconsistencies within the assessment. George Raffi has the rest of the story.
The Finance Ministry in the statement noted that the appeal was influenced by some material information that was missing out in Moody's assessment, such as the 2022 budget expenditure controls. The ministry was also worried about the appointment of a new credit analyst just 4 weeks to this major announcement, who didn't have enough time to assess measures taken by Ghana and hadn't visited the country as part of those basic requirements. Government also noted that it is pressing ahead with this appeal after an earlier one was rejected by Moody's despite some serious inconsistencies in its analysis and action on downgrade of Ghana's creditworthiness. On Standard & Poor's decision to maintain Ghana's ratings at B negative with a stable outlook, the Ministry of Finance noted that Ghana could have had its rate upgraded as the agency cites delays in passing the e-levy as one of the reasons for not upgrading Ghana's credit ratings. For some, the decision to appeal the ratings by Ghana can be described as interesting because government actually pays these agencies to carry out these reviews, which comes at a huge cost to the country. This is because any country that borrows from the international market is required to have at least 2 credit rating agencies. However, in Ghana's situation, it has 3 credit rating agencies.
Now, do take a listen to President Akufo-Addo, who's been speaking about the ratings agencies and their impact on Africa's economic landscape.
We need to guard against the continuing consequential stranglehold of the rating agencies, which has affected the cost and access to capital markets for African countries and has, during this COVID period, resulted in the downgrading of many African countries, exacerbating even more their funding challenges. Furthermore, it is of the utmost importance that the G20 leaders stick to their commitment to reallocate to Africa SDR 100 billion agreed to at the Paris Summit in May 2021. These issues have also been captured in the draft Assembly decision, which Your Excellencies will be considering and hopefully adopt. Chairperson, we need to work collectively as the African Union to reform the global financial architecture, even as we build and strengthen our financial institutions.
And that'll be it for business. We have sports coming up. Do stay with us.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the Joy News Prime with me, Oriku Ampofo. Now, Senegal have returned home to a rapturous welcome after beating Egypt on penalties to win their first ever Africa Cup of Nations trophy. Now, these were the scenes in Dakar when the Teranga Lions arrived earlier on Monday afternoon. So that is the scene of a country winning their maiden Africa Cup of Nations trophy. But let's come back to Ghana, and this time hear from the communications director of the Ghana Football Association, Henry Asante Chum, who has debunked claims government is imposing a foreign coach on them following the dismissal of Milovan Rajevac. According to recent media reports, former Newcastle and Brighton coach is the Sports Ministry's first choice for the vacant job, despite the GFA preferring Dortmund assistant coach Otto Addo. Now, Henry Asante Chum says that there is no iota of truth in the reports, and he was speaking with MFR Pau on the probe.
I don't know about any such decision. As far as I am concerned, we haven't met the ministry. I know that, we are stakeholders in development, especially the government is recognized in providing infrastructure and providing funds for the development of football. But as technocrats, we are responsible for the decision making. So yes, these are things we read in the media every day. You wake up to stories in the press that government is trying to impose a coach on the FA. I don't remember, sitting in any such meeting since our last meeting with the Honorable Minister of Sports, which called for the dismissal of the technical team and also the dismissal of the management committee. That has been our last engagement, as a body. I don't know if certain individuals have been spoken to, but officially, I have had a word with the General Secretary. I've spoken to members of the Executive Council, and collectively, they have all denied knowledge of any such decision by the ministry. So, yes, the ESCO takes responsibility of such decisions. They have the powers of appointment, so they will need to convene a meeting. And if it is that government has a recommendation, we can always, dialogue, because as stakeholders, we can agree to disagree. We go into meetings, come up with all the suggestions and the discussions, but in the end, we have always taken a decision that is in the best interest of Ghana.
Well, before we go, there was a big upset on match day 16 of the Ghana Premier League as bottom place side Elmina Sharks stand top of the table Asante Kotoko at the Indum Sports Stadium on Monday afternoon. Sharks came from a goal down to beat the league leaders 2-1 to end their 9-match winless run, whilst the Porcupine Warriors also missed the late penalty and ended the game with 10 men after Ibrahim Moro was given a straight red card for dissent.
Yes, Kotoko in this, the opener. Dixon Afwakwa. He scores for Asante Kotoko. And the Porcupines are unstoppable. They jump into the lead on 38 minutes here in Elmina.
Catch them if you can. Catch them if you can. The moment they are unstoppable, Kotoko, everything going their way from Sharks. They were not watching, they were not concentrating. It was from the throw-in. Kotoko were quick in their thinking, and they play themselves. And it's that man again in Fuege, who's always sharp, who's always alert. Movement of the boys, that's fascinating to see. This is football. This is football. You enjoy that.
Yes, he's been waiting for long, and that's the equalizer. Elmina Sharks are back in it. Edukau, who's parity.
That's how to to respond. That is how to respond. And the whip of the ball into the box is brilliant. The goalkeeper can't come out and claim it.
So the Porcupine Warriors do maintain a 4-point lead over Bechem United and also have a game in hand. That's how we wrap up the sports segment here. Over to you, Ernest.
Thank you very much, Ricky, for bringing us sports. But that's it. If you're watching us on Joy Prime, that's it for the bulletin. Many thanks for your company. If you enjoy news, you have more stories for you. Becky standing by with Showbiz Plus International. Stay with us. And she's here now with the very latest. Hello, Becky.
Hello to you, Ernest.
How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Looking good as always. Oh, I'm fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you know you have a huge fan base at the University of Ghana.
I do.
Yeah, last week I was there for a program and I met quite a number of them, led by one, Veronica, and also I think Benedicta. Yeah.
Oh, we should look for them.
They love you so much.
Oh, I love them.
And they've told me to give you more time, but I told them that's not within my reach. Like, it's not within my remit.
Yeah, you don't give me more time.
Exactly.
Like what you're doing right now. Like, he's taking my time. But a lot has been happening in the world of showbiz, especially celebs have been, sharing their take on the e-levy conversation. We have J.W. Ambuli, Bessa Simons. We have, a host of others, sharing their take on this e-levy conversation that is ongoing.
No, I think that the e-levy is being forced on the citizens of Ghana because there's no way that you come to tell me that e-levy is going to give you 6 billion or something, of which all along the way from the 2016 up to now, the loans that you've taken is in billions. They couldn't do nothing to show, but this time you said that, we're going to build roads with, we are not kids. You understand me? Because people need to pay if they are flexible and working. If there's jobs and everywhere, and you are paying some, there are jobs. Now there are no jobs, nothing to show for, and the little one that in my pocket too, when you want to take it, man, they got to trash it.
So it's a step in the wrong direction?
A totally wrong direction. They must, because that will bring confusion. You see, because people are hungry, and the hungry people always become angry.
You know something? Nobody wants to pay any tax. But I think there need to be a debate. There need to be a debate, proper debate, where we can hear both sides of the e-levy. At the moment, there hasn't been any debate. People are just talking about it. Because I've been asking people, what do you understand about the e-levy? You say, I don't know, but I don't want to pay any tax. Who wants to pay any tax? There needs to be a conversation.
Well, with this e-level, it's just crazy. It's so crazy because even my relatives in the village, everyone, transacts with Momo. So, I don't know, people can send you 20 cedis. Like, people ask as less as 20 cedis. So, if you are sending people 20 cedis, 50 cedis, I mean, Ivy, let's not go there.
It's just too much. It's just too much because we earn a lot of benefit from different angles, and even just yesterday or something, I heard even the COVID brought us like $500 and something million, and then you still want to take these taxes? Come on, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. To be honest with you, it's ridiculous. No, but Andy, they should though. They should scrap it.
They should scrap it, eh? Hey, because Charlie, you're looking at this.
Does not make sense.
Very interesting views from
Kwesi P, Lamisi,
all of them against it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Do you
we
have
have to find somebody who supports the e-levy.
E-levy.
At least from that circle.
Okay, we'll wait for that until...
You should look for them.
Well, until then, we'll talk about Peter Sedufia. He was on Showbiz A to Z this weekend, and he's revealed that many of his colleagues will be creating and producing television shows and series for online streaming platforms this year. According to him, since the pandemic hit in 2020, cinema life has been severely affected, and even though in some countries, including Ghana, the ban on cinema has been lifted, many people still prefer to watch TV or streaming platforms.
That's true.
My main motive is for people to like it and be happy about the project and then see it as something worth their time and their money.
what I can say is that we are going to be seeing more filmmakers venturing into the producing of television content. Content for television and then the online streaming platforms. Reason being that a lot of people are still skeptical of stepping out. You know, some companies are still asking their workers to work from home, and others are also not too sure whether it is ripe to step out or to go into the cinemas or the public spaces to watch film. So they are still home, and so the television and the online streaming platform have become their go-to source of entertainment. That is for people that are interested in movies. And because of that, the demand for those online and television content have become so high that the buyers are buying more. And so producers will now be focusing their attention to producing for that medium because it doesn't require a 50% audience. It's actually going to increase the audience base because of the number of people that are going to be based in their houses. And that is what is going to propel us as filmmakers to produce more and more in spite of the let me say, the challenge with the cinema.
You see a Vera or anything belonging to them on your land, remember to blow your whistle.
Well, Peter Sedufia there.
I agree with him. Many will still want to watch, online. And I guess they just have to explore that avenue.
So
it makes it more, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I still love I would love to go to the cinemas. I should take you there one.
Oh, you will on Val's Day?
I don't know what I'm doing on Val's Day.
Yeah, so you can go to the
Val's Day is Monday.
It's Monday, so yeah.
We're both single. We can go together. Don't worry. It's
a date, Becky.
Sure. Let's talk about Kylie Jenner because she's announced the birth of her second child with Travis Scott and confirms their son arrived just one day after daughter Stormy's 4th birthday. So the mother of two posted a sweet black and white photo featuring her new son's tiny hands to mark the news, while noting that he was born on February 2. Ernest.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah.
Did the reporter say she loves being pregnant?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That's the first time I've heard anything like that.
Well, I love being here.
So
with
Veronica and Benedicta have given her a lot of time today, so please take note.
I'll check
Thank you very
guys.
much, Becky, for being our showbiz. We have more stories for you after this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. A student group calling itself Concerned University Students will on Tuesday hit the streets to protest what they describe as the inaction on the part of government to resolve the strike by the university lecturers. UTEC has been on strike since January 10 with no end in sight despite several meetings and a court order directing both parties to resolve their issues. UTEC says government should not use the National Labour Commission as a bully referee to intimidate lecturers. Leader of the coalition, George Kofi Amwa, wants students across the country to join this protest in their quest to get their lecturers to return to the lecture halls.
UTAG on Monday, 10th January 2022, officially embarked on this indefinite strike, and it's been several days and we've been in the 5th week, yet still, these lecturers have decided not to return to the classrooms. We believe that government shouldn't use the National Labour Commission as a bully referee to sabotage our lecturers. We've all realized that the ruling government has been so insensitive about this situation. And there is an Akan adage that says that when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. We want to tell both UTAC and government that students are suffering. Medical students are suffering. Business administration students are suffering. Nursing students are suffering. International students are suffering. Agriculture students are suffering. IT students are suffering. And even the psychology students that are to place us in a stable mentality are even suffering.
An Accra High Court had given UTAG and government a one-week window to try and settle their dispute out of court and report to it later. This was after the NLC had requested the court to stop the strike of the lecturers. But it appears the one-week period may expire without any action. This is because UTAG has refused to honor a meeting called by the NLC to continue negotiations. Well, let's go onto the phone lines now and speak to UTAG President at the Legon chapter, Dr. Samuel Nkumba. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Johnny's Prime. Why are you refusing to attend this meeting when the court had directed that the parties reach out and resolve the issue?
Thank you very much. We respectfully indicated to the National Labour Commission that we thought that being in court with them and the fact that the matters that need resolution is between UTAG and government, it would be appropriate for rather the National Labour Commission to communicate the court advice or the advice of the judge to our employer, for the employer to engage us for a resolution of the outstanding matter. And so for us, we didn't find the National Labour Commission an appropriate venue at which both government and UTAG are ordered to appear before them in a situation where we are in court with them at the same time, they seeking to be playing a mediating role between us and government in an attempt to resolve what is outstanding between us and government. And so on the day of the appearing in court, we had the Labour Commission and UTAG. The side of government wasn't represented because they are not party to the case in question in terms of the law. And so our view was that Labour Commission will simply inform the side of government that reported to it, for which reason we and the Labour Commission are in court that this is the advice from the judge and that government should take steps to resolve the matters with us and report back to the Labour Commission. We thought that would have been the appropriate approach, and we duly notified the Labour Commission that given the basis, we would not be able to appear before them in the order that they sent to us.
So Dr. Nkumba, if I understand you clearly, you're saying that you'd want to start the negotiations directly with government without involvement of the NLC.
Yes, the point is that whatever outstanding matters that have to be resolved for UTAG to go back to the classroom is with government and not with the Labour Commission.
And when you say government, you mean what, the Education Ministry?
Well, of course, on the side of government that is engaged with UTAG by virtue of negotiations is Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, which has the responsibility for engaging in such negotiation. Other parties on the side of government include Ministry of Education, Finance, Employment and Labour Relations, and then the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. So those are our stakeholders on the side of government.
But the NLC will only be doing its constitutional job, its mandate of making sure that the impasse is resolved. And by bringing all the parties to the table. In the case that our
employer, who are the side of government stakeholders I've mentioned, are the ones who reported to the Labour Commission, for which Labour Commission is in court with us. And so if there's a determination from the court, it is for the Labour Commission to inform government that the court advises that settle the matters out of court. And so I must indicate also that fortunately there is going to be a meeting tomorrow at the instance of the Minister of Education, including all of the stakeholders on the side of government and UTAG. And we hope that some information positive on the side of government will come through at that meeting, and then we would know what to do.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. That's Dr. Samuel Nkumba. He's the Legon Chapter President of UTAG. We booked the National Labour Commission, the Executive Secretary for Samoa, to speak to, but we were unable to reach him. When we do, we'll bring you that interview. A civil society organization, Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, has petitioned the Special Prosecutor, Kiseja Ben, to probe the $560 million support by the World Bank towards the country's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. That's not all. The group also wants the Special Prosecutor to probe how the COVID-19 relief loans under the Obatampa Cares program was disbursed under the NBSSI office. The petition comes on the back of the revelation by the country director of the World Bank, Pierre Laporte, indicating a $560 million financial support given to government to fight the pandemic. In an interview with the executive director of ASEPA, Mensa Thompson, he questioned why government would impose taxes on ordinary Ghanaians after receiving so much money from the World Bank.
But last year, government told us that who is supposed to pay for the free water and the free electricity that they gave us? We, the citizens, have to pay for it. And so last year, we paid for that. So if the IMF have given us money for these relief packages, and we, the citizens, have been charged and paid for it, then what was the IMF money used for?
So you're saying the $560 million, what did you use for? That's the question.
What did they use it for?
And is that why you want the OSP to?
So we want the OSP to investigate and tell us how those monies were disbursed, because the World Bank cannot give us money for our COVID policies and packages. Then government will later turn around to tell us to pay back. So after we've paid back, what happens to the money from the World Bank?
What are the specific things you're expecting him to do?
So what we are asking the special prosecutor to do is to investigate this purely from the finance minister's perspective, because the finance ministry that took delivery of these monies. So the $560 million from the World Bank, the $1 billion from the IMF, the over $200 million they took from the Heritage Fund. We want the special prosecutor to investigate the disbursement of these monies and go into what we call the value for money audits and see whether we can justify the application of these funds. That's all. And this is not purely an ASEPA initiative. The diplomatic community, our development partners and our donor community are purely interested in these things, because you can't give money to a government and not know what the money was used for. So we want some form of transparency, some form of accountability, especially in this free water, free electricity, which government asks us to pay back.
No, but you've petitioned the OSP. I mean, has he received a copy of the petition? What has been his response or reaction to you? Yes,
the OSP has received the petition, and they said they are going to write back to us, and so we are going to wait patiently till they respond. Apart from this petition, we've also reminded the special prosecutor of the Frontiers Health Services contract at the airport, which we have asked the OSP to investigate. They wrote to us in October last year that they started investigation on it. So we want the special prosecutor to also provide an update on the Frontiers Health Services contract at the airport. We want to know exactly what that contract entails, with the value for money audit, to strip the corporate veil and see who are the beneficial owners of this contract.
I see. Now, for me, you've petitioned the OSP, and I want to know what is your suspicion that the covered money may have been misapplied? Is that your suspicion or what?
Yes, not just misapplied, but also there's been allegations of, substantive breaches in terms of procurement. The procurement of PPEs. How was it done? Was it done through a transparent manner? Was there value for money? The procurement of food. We've seen the cost that we're told that government incurred in the distribution of food. Now, what is the value for money audit on that? How transparent was that processes? Did we get value for money? Then also the procurement of vaccines. $130 million given to us for the procurement of vaccines. What is the process? Was the vaccines procured through the public procurement laws in accordance with the laws of this country?
Parliament has already proved that. I mean, the Sputnik V vaccine.
Yes, but
you want a holistic investigation.
We want a holistic
into all the procurement.
Yes, we want a holistic investigation specifically into the $130 million that the World Bank gave us to procure the vaccines. So how were those monies applied in the procurement of those vaccines? Were the laws followed? Did we get value for money? Is that expenditure justified? Why has government received all these monies and still broke?
The opposition NDC has joined forces with some civil society organizations and political parties to stage the Ncr demo, to which we won't pay, against the introduction of the e-levy. According to the NDC, the coalition of concerned Ghanaians demonstration will also focus on the general hardship in the country, including the industrial action by university lecturers and government failure to pay allowances of NAPCO recruits. My colleague Kwesi Parker Wilson has the rest of the story.
The party has
scheduled Thursday, 10th February 2022, to protest against the government. Some civil society organizations, including Justice for Ghana, ASEPA, as well as the Coalition of Concerned Tertiary Students, were among the groups backing the NDC in its quest to march against the introduction of the e-levy and what they call the general hardship in the country. George Opariado is National Youth Organizer of the NDC.
Young people have lost hope in our republic, and rightly so, due to the recklessness of the Akufo-Addo-Mahmoud Bawumia administration. Ladies and gentlemen, on Thursday, February 3rd, 2022, the National Youth Wing of the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, notified the police to stage a demonstration dubbed the Ncr Demonstration on Thursday, February 10th, 2022, in Accra as the beginning of a nationwide protest and picketing across the breadth of this country. The rationale behind the demonstration is to, amongst other things, 1, give backings to the members of the minority group in Parliament who are fighting at the peril of their lives to stop the Akufo-Addo-Mahmoud Bawumia administration from foisting its unpopular e-levy tax down the throats of the ordinary Ghanaian.
And that's it for our package tonight. Many thanks for your company. Please log on to myjoyonline.com. You find more stories there.